It's not exaggerating to say that the most iconic female character in gaming is Tomb Raider's Lara Croft. Star of 19 games, 2 films, still going strong after nearly 20 years, she's been influenced by company after company since her creation at Core Designs, by the likes of Eidos, Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics. Yet before any of that, she wasn't even the star of the game. In early development of Tomb Raider, lead graphic artist Toby Gard instead created a male lead for the game. Unfortunately, the Egyptian pyramids and Aztec ruins had influenced the character a little bit too much, and he created a rather stereotypical adventurer that was basically Indiana Jones, complete with the hat and whip. Core Design's co-founder, Jeremy Smith, quickly pointed out the unoriginality of the character and asked for something else. At first, Gard tried reimagining the character they had, adding handlebar mustaches and slightly altering the clothing. But eventually, Gard realised this wasn't going to work and set about creating an entirely new hero. He came to the conclusion that a female character would be the easiest way to differentiate themselves from the Indiana Jones stereotype, and suggested to Smith using one of his secondary female characters as the protagonist instead. At first, Smith was sceptical. While there were a few female characters in gaming, they were either clad in armour or relegated to hostages and prizes. Would the primarily male gaming audience want to play as a girl? He decided to give it a shot. If it did work, then it could be a great hook. Toby Gard first took inspiration from characters like Tank Girl and pop artist Nena Cherry. He wanted to make a female that went against the typical airheaded girl that most video games seem to have. He ended up with about 5 different designs, including a muscle-bound woman, a sociopathic blonde, a flat-top hip-hopper, and a Nazi in a baseball cap. One design stood out from the rest though, a South American woman with a long braid. Gard intended her to be both extremely athletic, but also an expert on ancient treasures. Her name was Lara Croft. Lara wouldn't be around for long, as the company Eidos, the owners of Core, were not fully convinced of her character. They wanted to be more British friendly, and so rejected the name Lara Croft. Core didn't want to stray too far from their character, so the 6-man team opened up the phone book for their town of Derby and began searching for a name that sounded similar. Eventually they found it, and thanks to an unknown Derby resident, the name Lara Croft became destined for fame. Alongside the name change, Lara became a wealthy, thrill-seeking English countess who used her family's fortunes to go on adventures in search of forgotten treasures. While influences of the rugged Lara Croft remained, Lara now allowed for a side of sophistication as well. Lara was always intended to be an exaggerated portrayal of woman, again going back to the idea of making a traditional female character a badass instead. Oddly, by making her a caricature, it allowed for a more realistic model due to the limitations at the time. That being said, her bust, the most notorious unrealistic trait of Lara, was in fact an accident, when Gard accidentally increased it by 150% instead of just 50%. It was met by quick approval from the rest of the team before he could fix it. Animating Lara was the next big step, believing that the realistic fluid motions that Lara had would increase empathy for the character. It took sacrifices to pull off. Although present in the CG cutscenes, her trademark braid had to be cut from her gameplay model, as they needed the extra space to allow her to run, climb and swim convincingly. Speaking of which, Lara, alongside Mario, were one of the first 2 characters to allow full mobility in underwater in 3D. The first Tomb Raider was an instant hit, so much so that Lara's second adventure started creation immediately. But it soon became apparent that Lara was the true star, not the game. Soon, Eidos were using her image for everything. Cars, Lucozade, Visa, stamps, a breed of flowers and even a full album. Lara was everywhere to the point she was in the Financial Times, Newsweek, Time magazine and a top fashion magazine, The Face. She had the sex appeal that no other game character had, and Eidos knew it, hiring Nathalie Cook as the first real-life Lara Croft lookalike model. But Lara also began finding herself in more and more and more seductive outfits, and poses that got racier and racier and racier, and yeah, you get the point. Many fans seem to love this so much that the infamous nude raider rumour started circulating. But it wasn't all praise for Lara. One man was very upset in the direction Eidos was taking her. Lara's creator, Toby Gard. Gard felt Eidos had taken away control of his own character. His Lara would never be seen doing nude poses in magazines. Instead, she was a deadly, refined woman who was more interested in pillaging tombs. Extremely upset by this, Gard decided to leave Lara in the hands of Eidos, resigning from core. Lara still went strong though. Her second adventure improved on her tenfold. A new voice actress, in the form of Judy Gibbons, replaced her previous actor, Shelley Bond. Alongside new animations, better in-game models, and even her braid now making it into gameplay, there was no end in sight for her. People wanted more and more, and Eidos was happy to deliver. Core, on the other hand, not so much. Once their pride and joy, Lara became their hated taskmaster. Every day was spent working non-stop to make new games. As soon as one was finished, it was on to the next. Soon Core felt they had exhausted all they could do with her. The solution was simple. It was time to kill Lara Croft. Tomb Raider 4, The Last Revelation, with new voice actress Jonelle Elliott, was not intended to have a cliffhanger ending, but instead a full killing off of the character in hopes of avoiding Tomb Raider 5. It didn't work. Eidos demanded they bring her back. She was just too much of a moneymaker. So, soon Lara was brought back to life for 2 more games. But Core's fears of being burnt out making them were realised. Chronicles had problems, but Angel of Darkness dug Lara a fresh grave, being received very poorly. Eidos decided that Core was no longer up to the job. Blame ran amok, and several people who had been at Lara's creation either left or were fired. This included affecting Lara's movie career. Despite receiving a very positive response to Angelina Jolie's portrayal in the first film, the sequel flopped, and Lara's recent lackluster games were to blame. In hopes of saving her, Eidos sent Lara to California to a new development team. She was now in the hands of Crystal Dynamics. Lara was reimagined, her design re-evaluated, and it was none other than Toby Gard who took the helm. Returning as a consultant, Lara was remade as he originally envisioned her, more muscular, less buxom. She did retain most of her moves, but gained new tricks, as well as losing ones holding her back. From a design standpoint, the main idea with this Lara was to keep the caricature style, but bring it to life through detail such as realistic muscle definition and skin tones. Keely Hawkes took up the role of her voice actress and would stick with her for several years to come. Lara took note of her past, and now avoided the mistakes of yesteryear by taking her time with new releases. The games adapted the original storyline and included elements of the film franchise, like the manner design and characters. They also hoped to give a bit more morality to Lara's previously violent attitude, by making her contemplate her kills. This Lara would take us through 3 more games, eventually becoming the first to be animated through motion capture. But alas, her grip on the main series was not meant to last, as she's now relegated to a spin-off series. 2013 brought us another new Lara Croft. Gone was the headstrong caricature she once was, in both design and attitude. Now Lara was unsure of herself and less athletic in hopes of humanizing her. She would now kill and raid tombs out of necessity for survival, rather than personal gain. Although Keely Hawkes retained the role of the classic design spin-off, now Camilla Luddington would voice the new incarnation as well as provide all the motion capture. Discarded was the past 17 years of stories, as the series started afresh with a dark origin tale. Although it was felt important to retain some elements of the past, such as her ponytail and colour scheme, by the end of the game she also seems to have gained some of her past self, right down to the double pistols. At the time of making this video, the reboot sequel is yet to arrive, so it's still too early to say how Lara will change next. though it seems the dark adult elements will return, alongside what looks to be future series staples like the climbing axe and bow. Oddly enough, we've actually had more games set in the previous storyline, instead of the reboot since its release. There are also plenty of comics and books that are indeed canon to all three versions of the Tomb Raider universe, however to cover all of the characterization and changes, that would take far too long. But hey, if you want to find out for yourself, why not dig into some bookshops and raid some tombs yourselves? And if not, well, our next game isn't that far off. I think Lara Croft, in some form, will be tomb raiding for a long time yet.